Hi, today we are going to ponder upon the second part of second prose piece prescribed for 12th grade students from the textbook Flamingo. The title of this prose piece is Lost Spring Stories of Stolen Childhood, written by Anish Jung, an Indian author. Now, why did I say only the second part here in this video? It is because I have already dealt with the first part in my previous video. If you have not yet watched my previous video on the same topic, I highly recommend you to watch my previous video so that you will have a continuation of thought and a complete and thorough understanding of the text. In the first part, the narrator talks about a poor rag picker whose name was Sahib, or Sahib-e-Alam to be precise. I have explained quite in detail what happens with him, or what were his dreams, his aspirations, and everything about him I have dealt in my previous video, and that is why I recommend you to watch it first, and then you can watch this so that you will have a clear understanding of this chapter. Well, let's straight away go to the second part, that is, I want to drive a car. In our previous part, we read, which is a part of, the previous part is an account of a poor rag picker whose name was Sahib or Sahib-e-Alam, as I told you. It is, although it is true that he got a job, a paid job. It was a good amount that he got, that is 800 rupees, and all his meals. In spite of everything, he was not happy, because he didn't appear to be happy because he had lost his freedom. That's what we read at the end of the first part. That is, Sahib is no longer his own master. That means he has lost his freedom. See, the bag was his, the canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. That means he is no longer his own master. But the second part starts like this. The very starting or the very beginning of the second part is like this. Mukesh insists on being his own master. So that is his dream, that is his aspiration, his desire to be his own master. So let's see what happens in the second part. Again, I'll narrate everything in my own words, and then you may read the text for yourself. As you know that there is no substitute to reading. I reiterate this point time and again, that there is no substitute to reading. You have to read after watching the video to have a clear and complete understanding. Well, the second part I'll narrate in my own words. It is about, this account is about Mukesh. Now, Mukesh is a young boy who worked in a glass furnace in Firozabad. Firozabad is a small town that is famous for its bangles, and most of the families that live there in Firozabad, they walk around furnaces, welding glass, making bangles, and so on. So people did not know that it was illegal for children to work in glass furnaces with high temperatures in dirty and small places devoid of air and light. They did not know that. And then the narrator says, Anish Jung says, that there were about 20,000 such children, of whom many had lost their vision, and many had lost their vision working there. So it is an account of, again, poor condition or miserable condition of children working in glass furnaces. So basic idea remains the same, what Anish Jung wants to convey, but it is just with a different account. In the first part, the account was of a poor rag picker. In the second part, it is the children who work in unhealthy conditions. Now here we, again, as the story proceeds, we read that Mukesh took Anish to his home. How was his home? It was a shack with an unsteady iron door. His house was one of the foul, it was located, or it was situated in one of the foul smelling lanes, with garbage thrown all around. That's what we read in the text. And all the houses were shacks with crumbling walls, with shaky doors. That means doors were not strong, and no windows, and crowded, it was crowded with families of humans and animals, all living together in a primitive state. That's what we read. So they were adjusting themselves. It was not a very happy life that they were living. And then we read in Mukesh's house, as Anish Jung, the narrator, entered, she noticed, as she entered Mukesh's house, or in other words, as she went into his house, she noticed firewood stove on which there was kept something was kept. What was kept? Some spinach leaves were placed in the vessel, and that was boiling. Then there was a frail young woman who was cooking food for the whole family, and this woman was actually Mukesh's elder brother's wife. The lady was not much older. She was not an old lady, quite young, maybe a little bit older than Mukesh. She was actually the bahu, or the daughter-in-law of this house. She was actually responsible for taking care of at least three men: her husband, then Mukesh, and then their father. And then we read that as the older man entered, she retreated behind the broken wall and pulled her veil closer to her face. It was because, as the custom demands, let me quote it, let me read it for you from the text, that is NCRT book, what she says. As custom demands, daughters-in-law must veil their faces before male elders. So this is the custom, and this is what she also followed. In this case, the elderly man was a poor bangle maker. That means Mukesh's father was a poor bangle maker, and he had slogged all his life. He had worked very hard all his life, first as a tailor and then as a bangle maker. But in spite of his hard work, he had failed to even repair his house, to renovate his house, or even send his two sons to school. That's what we read in the text. And then, as the account proceeds, we read that Mukesh's grandfather had actually lost his vision, due to the dust from polishing the glass of bangles. That's what we read in this story. However, Mukesh's grandmother, she blamed his karam, his destiny. These people could not think of a livelihood beyond bangle making. And then we read that in the dark hutments, what could be seen? Something could be seen. That's what we read. One could see four-wheeled handcarts, and then young children with their parents could be seen welding pieces of colored glass into bangles. And then their eyes were better adjusted to darkness than the natural light outside. What a pathetic condition they were in. And then we read about Savita. Savita is actually a young girl who is seen soldering pieces of glass. And Anish looks at her, and she wonders whether she would know what these bangles symbolize, or what they represent. Actually it represents an Indian woman's suhag, a good omen in marriage, we can say in English. Or sometimes it is also, suhag also stands for the bridegroom, or the husband. We know that being Indians. Now, perhaps Savita would realize it once when she became a bride, the importance of these, bangles. The old woman beside Savita, had bangles on her wrist, that is true, but no eyesight. So all of them were, in a very bad condition. All the families lived in a similar downtrodden condition. It had been seen for generations in Firozabad. And then we read that they did not have the capacity to organize themselves into a cooperative to save themselves from the middlemen for the fear of police. They had none who could guide them. There was a huge gap, or huge, contrast between, two worlds there. One was that of poverty-stricken families, and the other was of sahukars, the middlemen, the policemen, the keepers of law, the bureaucrats, and the politicians. So Anish Jung emphasizes, or she strikes on this huge gap, or this contrast between two classes of family. Mukesh had not resigned himself to his fate. Unlike the others, he wanted to be a motor mechanic. At least he could dream of becoming a motor mechanic. The writer suggested that they organize themselves in a cooperative, in a union, and in order to save themselves from being fleeced by the middlemen. However, we see that they expressed their inability, their helplessness, and they said that their attempts at getting organized would only cause them harm. They would only be victimized by the police. They lacked a leader who could help them see things in a different way. So they were very, fearsome. They were very afraid. They could not even dare to dream, of living a life better than this. the writer emphasizes the gulf between the two worlds, that is the poverty-stricken family, and the other which I have already mentioned, that is the sahukars, the middlemen, the policemen, the keepers of law, the bureaucrats, and the politicians. So through this account, actually the writer wants to draw the attention of everyone. However, as this account comes to an end, we read that though he dared not dream of possibility of flying an aeroplane. Why? Because he could not see, he could not imagine, because the writer the writer herself says, Anish Jung herself says, he is content to dream of cars that he sees hurtling down the streets of his town. He could see the cars hurtling down, running, but few airplanes fly over Firozabad. He had never seen, or rarely he might have seen an aeroplane or an airplane, so he could not dream of flying an aeroplane, but at least he could dream of what he had seen, that is driving a car. Well, here comes an end to this account. However, before winding up, certain things are worth mentioning. First of all, let me repeat the theme for you. What is the theme of this story or this prose piece? Its theme is the writer depicts the miserable and pathetic condition of poor children who are forced to labor or do labor at an early age. Owing to poverty, they do not have an opportunity to get education. And in order to illustrate this theme, the narrator or the writer has taken first the example or the account of a rag picker whose name was Sahib Alam, and then second she has taken the example of or the account of a poor bangle maker whose name is Mukesh. Last but not the least, the title of this chapter, this prose piece, is Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood. Now, what it has to do with spring, let me tell you that also before winding up. Spring is a season. Spring is a climate that is almost loved by everyone. I don't think there must be anyone on this globe who may not like spring. So here, the word spring is used in a symbolic way. Spring stands for the childhood of a person. The childhood of human life is the spring period of one's life, when a child is never worried about anything. It is full of fun, frolic, play and pleasure. It is an age, it is known for its innocent pranks. During this period, children are not even aware of the tensions and stresses of life. But sad to say that owing to poverty and destitution, these children are deprived of the normal pleasures of childhood. Consequently, or as a result, they lose their spring, that is their childhood. So hence we can say that the title is very much fitting or appropriate to this account that we have read. Now I'm sure I have done the proper justice by narrating everything that is there in this prose piece. Yet if you have any question, please feel free to let me know in the comment section. I shall clarify your doubt. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you have not yet done so, and press the bell icon so that you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thanks for watching.